Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you happen to be. This is your weekly update. This is possibly the last update that I'll be sending. Again, the new instructor, like I said in the very first video, and the entire class will be taking over starting into next week. I don't know exactly how that's going to function, but we're going to try to make this transition as smooth as possible for you, because I want to make sure, and I know that your new instructor will want to make sure that this does not affect your academic experience. So I just wanted to note that at the very start. This might be the last time you see me in a video. I'll always be, kind of there if you need me. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. But that's as we go forward. So let's jump into the class and look at what you're working on. At this point, as of the posting of this video, you will have completed the E assignments. You will be on the cusp of doing these non-E assignments. Again, this is where you're going to take the information from the E assignments, the feedback that I've given, the feedback that your peers have given, and then apply that so that you can improve your work. And then again, you'll get feedback from me or from your new instructor. Then you're going to use that feedback in order to, right down here, do the essay, which will be due on the 9th of September. Let's just kind of take a look at it real fast, because I want to make sure that you see everything you're supposed to do. Again, there, your instructions. You're going to combine all this stuff. We've kind of given you that roadmap, breakdown of the instructions. But down here at the bottom, I do want to take a quick look at exactly how you're going to be graded. All right, editing. Have you actually done any editing? I have seen students, again, before in the past who have just copied and pasted what they did for 1.1e, 1.1 directly into the 1.3 as the introduction and conclusion without changing anything. That's not how it works. As well, make sure that you have actually edited your work, that you've checked, grammar and things like that. And reading through, I can't possibly catch everything. I'm one person, but I try as thoroughly as possible. And so, yes, maybe I missed something in the 1.1, but that's no excuse. You still need to check your work yourself. Formality. Have you been formal? We're going to talk a little bit about that in this video right now. Do you have a clear thesis and does it meet your purpose? Is your work in MLA formatting, as we've covered it in the class to this point? I'm going to talk about that again in a second. Composition. Have you gone through and done everything that we ask you to do? And that's sort of tied into techniques as well. So make sure that you're using all the information that we are covering inside the class, that you are meeting your purpose with your audience. Before I go any further, I just want to say, now that I've seen some of your work, I can speak directly to some of the issues that I've seen. And by the way, I'm making this video at home because I have some time to be able to do it, and my cat is determined to come into the camera. So if he does, I'm very sorry. You might see a tail or something in a second. So I've seen your work directly, and I can speak to some of it. Some of you are presenting a problem, but you're not linking that problem to your purpose. So for example, if I were to say one night we were very crowded and the pizzas were coming out of the oven too fast and I dropped one. Okay, that's a problem. That is indeed a problem. And I could go into 3 or 4 paragraphs about that and describe, how busy we were, how frantic things were, the consequences of dropping a pizza on the ground. But I'm not meeting my purpose. I haven't done anything with that information. I told you about the problem, but I haven't told you about what the solution was to the problem, or how I grew from that particular incident, and how that would make me a better employee. So again, keep in mind that you have a hiring committee and that they're listening to you. And if you just tell them the story of pizzas were coming out of the oven too fast and they fell on the floor, okay, great. But that's basically just complaining, right? That's all that is. You haven't done anything with the story. So you need to do something with the story. I've seen that quite a bit on the boards, and I try to give you feedback to that effect. Hey, you need to build on this. Yes, you have a good problem here. In the sense of, you can learn something from this problem and demonstrate it to other people, but make sure that you can use it. As well, just one other thing that I did see that I kind of want to note is that, if you show a problem, make sure that it's the kind of problem that you can show growth from, right? If you say something along the lines of, I went to work and I was really mad and I walked out, that's not good for a hiring committee to hear, because they don't want to, this basically says I'm unreliable to them, because that's what that could be seen as, right? You go into work, you're unhappy, and you leave. That's going to tell them, hey, we don't need to hire this person, because if they're unhappy, they'll leave. So, be careful about the story that you're telling. Okay, here's what I want to do in the remainder of this video. I want to talk a little bit about formal college writing. I'm going to do this on fast forward. It's sort of, again, what I would do inside of a classroom. I mentioned some of these slides before in a prior video. This is when I say, make sure that you have MLA formatting. This is what I mean. So make sure that you have your name, the instructor's name, the class, the date. Make sure, again, if you don't know your instructor's education level, that you put doctor in front of their name at this level, because people are very picky about their education. I do not have a PhD, so I'm just Mr. Bowman. Down here on the 5th line, you need to have your title. It needs to be centered with all caps on the beginning of each word, as is shown here, unless you are using something like an article, and that article does not begin the sentence. So the, a, if that's the first word, it needs to be capitalized. If it's out in the middle of the sentence, it does not. Make sure you have your last name and the page number in the header. If you have issues with that, there's our step-by-step instructions inside the module. I also have a playlist on YouTube of videos that I've created that walk you through how to format all of this stuff. Okay, the rest of this is covered inside the material. So what I really want to do then is I want to skip past it, and I want to jump down here to the elements of language. These are elements of formality. These are all in the essay checklist, and some of the feedback I gave, I said, hey, make sure you go look at the essay checklist. And that's exactly what I mean, is I want you to go look at the essay checklist to make sure that you can look at those elements of formality. Again, my cat's determined to turn this computer off. Okay, so let's look at them. And I'm going to kind of go through them quickly because, it's a video and I don't want to sit here and make you watch a long video. But number one, make sure you do not use contractions. Contractions create familiarity with the other person. So, for example, if I say, I'm going to the mall, then that's a more friendly statement than I am going to the mall. That creates some distance and almost some tension in some ways. So, you're not trying to create tension, but you are trying to create distance because you don't know the person that you're writing to and you want to show them respect. And this is a pretty subtle way, but it is a profound way to go about showing respect and to have some formality. Use the active voice as much as possible. This is not an ultimatum. If you have a passive voice usage in there, I mean, it's not the end of the world, but if your entire paper is written in passive voice, that's a problem. The reason that instructors want you to avoid the passive voice is because it's kind of unnatural English, so to speak, and I put air quotes on that because it's not really. I mean, it's an English construction. It's just not sort of normal English. Normal English is, here's the person that did something, here's the thing that they did, and then here are any things that were acted on or if they're required as part of it. So Tim did an action, he kicked, that's his action. And what did he kick? He kicked the ball. But passive voice sort of takes that and reverses it. So the ball was kicked by Tim. That's a passive voice construction. The ball was kicked. By whom? Well, we don't know because that information can be left off. By the way, this was used by BP when they dumped millions of gallons of oil into the Gulf of Mexico. They said mistakes were made. By whom? Well, by BP. So active voice would have been BP made mistakes, and they didn't want to say that. So this was a creative construction on their part to avoid culpability. Don't do that. Just use active voice. It's just, normal English. I'm going to put air quotes on that because, I mean, again, passive voice is normal English too. It's just a little odd. Use italics for longer works. And by the way, this is conceptually longer. So books, anything that's called a book, Dr. Seuss books, those are actually indeed considered books. So, make sure that you, because Cat in the Hat is conceived of as a book, it should be italicized. It doesn't matter that there might be an academic article out there that's, twice as long as Cat in the Hat and has 10 times the words. That is conceived of as an article, and so therefore it needs to be in quotation marks because shorter works should be in quotation marks. So, pause this, jot that down. It's a pretty simple rule. People get lost in it, because they're like, oh, it's a very short book. Look, it's a very thin book. It doesn't matter. The Little Prince, Cat in the Hat, Hop on Pop, it doesn't matter. Those are books. Those are conceived of as books. So they're italicized. That applies to the novellas as well. Again, everything else, chapter titles, short articles, and so forth and so on, quotation marks. Those do not overlap or intersect. Okay, avoid repeating things. If you're repeating the same information in the essay, then you're not really saying anything. That's a formality issue as much as it is a composition issue. So, don't just repeat things. This is good advice, number 5. Just avoid absolutes. Absolutes tend to get us into trouble. Yeah, there are true things in the world. We could say the light is definitely on in the room because the light is or isn't on. But if we are trying to prove something using deductive or inductive reasoning, I would say more inductive than deductive, but inductive reasoning, that tends to get us into trouble. There's absolutely no water on Mars. Got scientists into trouble because, hey, guess what? They found water on Mars. It's frozen and it's underneath the surface. So, it's just avoid it. There's always an exception, we could get into philosophical debates here about that, but there are usually exceptions to everything. Don't abbreviate something unless you've already spelled it out, but only spell it out one time. Just as an FYI, it's super easy for me to use Control F and then replace to find every instantiation of you using a fully spelled out word and just replace it. It takes me 0.5 seconds to replace everything in your entire essay. If you've spelled out NAACP all the way throughout your essay, I will absolutely go through your essay and change it to just NAACP and then spell out the first instantiation. So spell it out one time, put the abbreviation there in parentheses, and then afterward only use the abbreviation. Avoid jargon and slang. LOL seems fairly universal, except that classic story of the woman who sent flowers to a funeral home for her friend when her mom died and said, I heard your mom died, LOL. So this is, lots of love. Jargon and slang tend to get us into trouble because they shift and they're not universal. And the same thing can be said of idioms. Sleep with the fishes is not universal across all languages. In fact, if you go to German, for example, and I can't remember the exact phrase in German, but it's I carry you around the corner. Somebody says they're going to carry you around the corner, watch out, because that's the English equivalent of sleep with the fishes. So just avoid idioms and jargon and slang as much as possible, unless, of course, the jargon is tied to a specific field, in which case, yes, you should be using it. All right, last thing, this is what I always show my students at the end of these slides, and that is, and this is a little outdated, but the gentleman on the left there is, he's a family man, he's a brave man because he flew, a helicopter. This is Prince William, 2 kids and everything. The guy on the right, he's turned into a family man, but originally he wasn't. He was a playboy and a party boy. And so he was filmed, they took pictures of him in a Las Vegas hotel room chasing some lady around, naked in there. And then at one point he thought it was a great idea to dress up as a Nazi for a Halloween party. But he's a brave guy. He flew Apache helicopters and whatnot. The point is, in the past, at the time that this picture was taken, the content of their character was different. But in this picture, they're both dressed respectably. So when I say formal writing, I can get you as far as dressed respectably. That's what this is. But above and beyond that, you still have to have content in your essay. Okay, so keep in mind that just because you can dress the essay up and that you've done all the contraction business and all of that, that does not mean that you've totally accomplished the content or purpose of your essay. So make sure that you still check on those aspects as well. It's a complicated thing, communication is, but really that's what this class is all about. All right, if you have questions, shoot me an email. Again, the new instructor should be taking over sometime this week, and so you can start emailing her as well, and I'll see you later.